Hilchas Bikurim Ushar Matnas Kuna Shebegvulin Perik Chamishi. So in the first four parakim, the Rambam discussed the halacha of Bikurim. Now, the next four parakim, the Rambam is going to discuss the chiyuv of challah. Mitzvahs asay lahafresh truma min ha'isa l'kein. When a person makes a dough, we'll learn from the Chameshes Mini Dogon, the person makes a dough, so besides the fact that he was mafresh trumas and maises from the dogon, now that he goes ahead and makes a dough out of this dogon, so now there's a new chiyuv of afrashas challah. Mitzvahs asay lahafresh truma min ha'isa l'kein. Shenem reishes harisiseichem challah terimu truma. V'reishes zu ein lo shir min atera. Elafila hifresh keseira is also pater seisa. Even if you only mafresh a keseira, you will also pater seisa. There's no shir. And v'ha'esa kol yisasi chala is le'osa kulum achi yishar miksasi. Because the next pasuk, the first pasuk says reish harisiseichem. The next pasuk says mei reishes harisiseichem. So we learn now that there has to be shirayim. You can't make that the whole isa should be chala. It has to be mei reishes. In other words, that he's leaving over chala. Just like by truma. By truma also there's a din that you can't be mafresh the entire crop to be truma. You have to leave over shirayim. By bikurim, the din was that the entire field can be bikurim. Masha'inkin by truma, you have to have shirayim, and al derez by chala, you have to have shirayim. Now the lashon Rambam is that you ein lo shir min atera afilu hifrish keseira. So the Rebbe is medayik in Rashi that by Rashi it says Rashi teaches chala turima truma. Chala says turtle balaz. So the turtle is like a cookie, like something that's like a davar choshev. So that according to Rashi, there's a chiyuv minatera to give a davar choshev. And according to the Rambam, there's no chiyuv minatera to give a davar choshev. You can give even kiseira. Masha'inkan, according to Rashi, chala turimu truma. The word chala means to give a davar choshev. That lies in the word chala, turtle balaz. In other words, in itself like a cookie or something that's choshev or a bulket. So. And the Rebbe also says that the chilik is how you read the pasuk. The question is, do you read the chala? In other words, chala terimu truma. So the chala is going on what you're teirim truma chala, or the pshat is the chala is going on reishes harisisechem, which is chala, which is the shear of the oimer which they had in the midbar, which the Rambam later on going to discuss in Perek Shishi, the shear of what's chayav b'chala. So reishes harisisechem chala knows if it's the chala like the chalas hamidbar, so then there's a chiyuv of terimu truma, and the pasuk is b'chlal not telling you how much to give truma. Mashenkin, according to Rashi, reishes harisisechem kama, and then chala terimu truma. So chala is going on what you should be teirim. What should be teirim? Chala turtle balaz, which means a davar choshev. That's how the Rebbe learns the chiluk between the way the Rambam says pshat in the pasuk and the Rashi learns pshat in the pasuk. Halacha beis umidivri seifrim. Shemafrishin echad marbo ve'esim meno isa. This is from the isa, which is a normal isa, which is the size of an aimer, which the Rambam will get involved with proteus in the size. So echad marbo ve'esim meno isa kedei sheyiyah ba matana lakein. Shenamar titnulei. So 10 lidover haroi litli matana. So a 24th of an aimer is considered a davar choshev. B'hanachtem ha'isa limker bashok. So he normally makes larger doughs. So therefore, mafresh echad mishmeina varboin. So he's mafresh 1 out of 48. If he sheisasi meruba, so therefore normally yesh b'shir zeh kedei matana, in the shear of a 48th of a nachtem. So there's already kedei matana. Now ha'isa isa l'mishta b'nei. Person's making a private person is making a isa l'mishta b'nei is afal pishir meruba, since it's l'mishta b'nei is making a large dough. Nevertheless, is mafresh echad me'esem varbo. Shalilachlik, this is balabais. Not to say sometimes the balabais has to give a 24th, and sometimes he has to give less. So they made a blanket rule that he always has to give a 24th. V'hanachtem she'asi isektana, if a baker, whatever reason, made a small dough, is also as echad marboim mishmein shalilachlik bisis hanachtem. So the kitzur, a balabais always gives a 24th, whether he makes a large dough or an extra large dough, or just gives the regular dough, which is the shear of challah. And a nachtem always gives a 48th, whether he makes a large dough, which is what he normally would make, or for whatever reason he makes a small dough. Halacha dalet. Nitma so isa b'shegi gebeinis. So now the challah really is only going to go to sreifa. The kohen is not going to really have any benefit from the challah, just for the sreifa. So therefore, mafresh echad marboy mishmeina. He only has to be mafresh echad marboy mishmeina, so it shouldn't go so much liibut. But if the person was Matame, the Isa Bezodin, so then Mafresh Echad B'Chavdalit, Galishli Echet Nisker. V'chalat Tmeya is Muteris La'Soke, Ketruma Tmeya. So it's the same thing, just like Truma Tmeya is burnt. So Al Derazeh, Chalat Tmeya is burnt. Halacha Hey. Ein Chayavim B'Chala Min HaTeira Ela B'Eretz Yisrael B'Vad. Where is there a Chiyav Chala Min HaTeira? Is only in Eretz Yisrael. Shnama V'Oyer B'Ochlechem B'Lechem Haaretz B'Gem. And also, not only in Eretz Yisrael, but it has to be B'Zman Shekol Yisrael Sham. Shnama B'Veachem. So it has to be as Kulchem, V'Li B'Yas Miktzazchem. So it has to be Tutnoim. It has to be in Eretz Yisrael, and it has to be also B'Yas Kulchem. Leficha Chala B'Zman Hazeh, V'Afilu B'Mei Ezra B'Eretz Yisrael, is Ein Elam D'Vrei, Misha B'Yarna B'Truma, because since by Ezra there wasn't B'Yas Kulchem, so in Mela, so it was never in the Chayiv, in Chala on a Menatei, the level. Now, Peiris Chutz Loretz, Shenichn Loretz, so we were talking about on a Menatei, the level. In Eretz Yisrael, let's say you're Chayiv B'Chala. And now Peiris Chutz Loretz, Shenichn Loretz, is also Chayiv B'Chala. And Peiris Oretz, Shiyatza Chutz Loretz is P'turin. Because since the Chiyav is B'Shast, it becomes an Isa, Shenamar Asher Ani Mevi Eschem Shama, so we learn out Shama Atim Chayavim, Bein Al Peiris Oretz, Bein Al Peiris Chutz Loretz. So we have a special limit to teach us that the Chiyav Chala in Eretz Yisrael, so it has to be B'Veachem, you have to come into Eretz Yisrael. B'Achelchem B'Lechem Oretz. So the passage sounds like, V'Yu B'Achelchem B'Lechem Oretz, you're eating from the Lechem Oretz. But since it says, Ve'atchem Shama, so we learn Asher Ani Mevi Eschem Shama, so we have a special limit to teach us that even if a person brings from Peiris of Chutz Loretz into Eretz Yisrael, and over there he makes an Isa, so he's also Chayiv B'Chala. And Al Derez Fakert. If he takes Isa Peiris Ha'aretz and he goes to Chutz Loretz and he makes an Isa over there, he's part of Chala. In other words, the Chiyav of Chala happens in Eretz Yisrael. And Memele, whether it's Chutz Loretz, Shenichn Loretz is Chayiv Chala, and Peiris Ha'aretz Shiyatzu Chutz Loretz is Ptur. Halacha Zayin. Mafrishin Chala b'Chutz Loretz Medivri Seifrim. Since earlier we learned that the Chiyav Chala is only in Eretz Yisrael and only by Bias Kulchem. And therefore, Afilu b'Mei Ezra in Eretz Yisrael was only Midivreim, was only a Din D'Rabbanan. Now we're saying that there was a Chiyav Chala also in Chutz Loretz. Besides the Chiyav Chala in Eretz Yisrael, when there was no Bias Kulchem, there is also a Chiyav Chala in Chutz Loretz Medivri Seifrim. And the reason is because L'Dishtakach Teres Chala Yisrael. So even though the Gabi Trumas Amaisis, there was only in certain places there's Trumas Amaisis, Mashenkin Chala, since it's something which is very often, it happens in the houses, so in Melish L'Dishtakach Teres Chala Yisrael, the Chazal instituted that there should be a Chiyav Chala also in Chutz Loretz. But since it's Chutz Loretz, so Mela has a din of Tumah, because Chutz Loretz is a din of Tomei. So therefore, Ein Mevin Chalas Chutz Loretz Loretz. You're not allowed to bring Chalas Chutz Loretz to Eretz Yisrael. Because if you can bring it to Eretz Yisrael, you're not going to be able to eat it in Eretz Yisrael. Because from the perspective of Eretz Yisrael, Chalas Chutz Loretz is Tomei. And you're also not going to be able to bring it back into Chutz Loretz. Because you can't bring Chala from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz Loretz. You can't burn it in Eretz Yisrael because there was no Tumei Yadua. So therefore, it's just a problem. So Ein Mevin Chalas Chutz Loretz Loretz. Kshein Shein Mevin Truma Bikurim Misham. You don't bring Truma from Chutz Loretz to Eretz Yisrael because from in Eretz Yisrael the Truma has a din of Truma Tmeya. Now that is a Bikurim. Now there's no Metzias of Bikurim in Chutz Loretz. And that's why there's no Metzias of Bikurim in Chutz Loretz, because of this din, because Ein Mevin Bikurim Chutz Loretz Loretz. So Memele L'Chatchila was never instituted a din of Bikurim. And the Hevi, if a person Lepel who brought Chalas Chutz Loretz to Eretz Yisrael, is Minicha ad Erev HaPesach, and V'tisorev Ketruma, if it's Chometz. Or if it's Chometz on Erev Pesach, you could burn it. Mashenka, if it's not Chometz, so you have to keep it until it becomes Tomei, or Tumei Yadua. Is Nachamol. You mafresh Chala in Chutz Loretz, and you don't bring the Chalas Chutz Loretz to Eretz Yisrael. However, if you did bring Chalas Chutz Loretz to Eretz Yisrael, it can't be eaten. You have to wait until Erev Pesach, and if it's Chometz, it can be burnt. Halacha Ches. Shloisha dinim l'chala b'shalosh haratzos. Toma b'zman hazeh. There's 3 dinim l'chala in Gimel haratzos. Kol ha'aretz she'echziku bo elabovel ad chsiv. This is the place where they were chziku elabovel. So the klal is the kedusha rishena, the kedusha with Elam Mitzrayim is leinas katchel asad lovi. It's kitchel l'shaita v'lei kitchel asad lovi. And once they went into Golus, the kedusha became bottom. Masha'enkin the kedusha shneir, that became kaddish. That's a kedusha shneir kitchel l'shaita v'kitchel asad lovi. Now legabi tumas eretz ha'amim. So the Kedusha Rishena, the place where they were Kovish Kedusha Rishena, has it in the Eretz Am. So maybe it's not, it's Tomei. Masha'enk in the place where there was Kedusha Shnia, this is where Kovsho Eli Bovel, that has it, doesn't have it in of that, since it's a Kedusha Eina Chanami, there's no Chi of Chalim and Atera, because it's not Bias Kulchem, but on the other end it's a Kedusha, and therefore it's not Tomei. Zazay. Is Kol Ha'aretz, She'evziku Bo Eli Bovel Ad Chziv, is mafrishin bo chala achas kashir. Over there you mafresh one chala, vihi necheles lekenim. Over there it's not, there's no tumah, so therefore it's necheles lekenim. Aber ushar Eretz Yisrael, she'evziku be'ele Mitzrayim v'le ele bavel, v'shehi mirziv adamona. So over there is mafrishin bo shtei chalas. You have to mafresh shtei chalas. Ha'achas nesrefes, one chala is nesrefes, and ha'achas necheles, and the other chala is necheles. What's the cheshbon of shtei chalas? You have to be mafresh chala, but the first chala is going to be tomei. Why is it tomei? Sharei niskadsha oisa oretz b'mei Ezra. B'mei Ezra, that oretz would never became miskadish. What about the kedusha rishena? Kedusha rishena the batel mishagalu. So b'mei, over here we have a land which doesn't have the kedusha of Eretz Yisrael. It didn't become kaddish b'mei Ezra, and what it became kaddish earlier became batel. But v'heil v'Eretz Yisrael, the pale it is the part of Eretz, it was originally part of Eretz Yisrael. And legabi certain dinim, it still has it in of Eretz Yisrael. Is v'heil v'Eretz Yisrael, is mafrishin bo chala echad mi'arboim u'shmeina. So you have to be mafrish chala echad mi'arboim u'shmeina. And v'seir f'nesa. Just like we learned that if you have an isa shenitma, it was nitma b'oinus b'shegir, so you mafrishin bo echad mi'arboim u'shmeina. So Alderas over here, this land over here, this place over here, whatever you'll be mafrish will be tomei. So memela mafrishin bo chala echad marboim mishmeina useir f'nesa. Mafrishin chala shnia and v'nes nesen lekeil la'achla, and that's not really the din chala. The ikar chala doch the first chala, which became tomei. But on the other hand, the second chala mafrishin chala shnia v'nes nesen lekeil la'achla kadei shaliyemru truma teilin nisrefes. You shouldn't say truma teilin nisrefes shari nisur risheina aval b'shalei nitma tumi yidu alakel. So people will see you a mafrish chala here in the oretz, which was of Eli Mitzrayim, Shevziko be'Eli Mitzrayim, and there's no Tumah Yadua, and you're burning it. So people say you're burning challah without having a Tumah Yadua. So therefore, by giving the second challah to the kohen, so the question is, why are you giving a second challah? So the mele you'll be masbeh that the first challah that we were mafresh was tummy, and the mele, so you're giving a second challah. So the whole purpose of giving the second challah is in order to be able to be masbeh that the first challah was tummy. So really, the ikar challah was the first challah, and that was taka nisrefes. And the second challah is only lehidia that the first challah became tummy, and that's why it was nisrefes. Vizu shnia ein l'shir. The second challah is ein l'shir l'kol shereitz amafresh mipnei shumi devreim. It's only a din d'rabbanan in order to realize why you burned the first challah. This is talking about the Eretz Yisrael she'evziko be'elim Mitzrayim, which is mirziv adamona. Then he says, "V'chol ha'aretz min Amona l'chutz," the further than Amona, either ben Besuria, ben Bishar ha'aretz, and others, anywhere outside of these two areas. In other words, the first area was the area which was Kavsha Ba'ilad Bav. Now the second area was the area which was Kavsha Ba'ilad Mitzrayim. Now we're talking about chutz l'aretz mamash. Mi Amona l'chutz ben Besuria, that is further north, and ben Bishar ha'aretz is over there also mafrishin shtei chalas. Achas l'sreif, over here the achas l'sreif is only kadesh l'yemru truma tmei nechelas. In other words, you're going to be mafresh truma, and that truma will be eaten, that challah will be eaten. But lepel, if the challah will be eaten, so people will say, well, we know those people that know that chutz la'aretz is tamei, so they'll say truma tmei nechelas. So mele we mafresh another challah in order to deher that this challah wasn't a real challah. In other words, nachamah. Achas l'sreifa, one of them you burned kadei shaliyemru re'inu trumat mei nechelas, because we see that this is l'sreifa, and v'achas la'achila shal tishtakach teres chalam Yisrael. So they instituted that there should be a truma la'achila shal tishtakach teres chalam Yisrael, and then he also instituted that there should be a chala nisrefes, so people shouldn't say that truma mei nechelas. We see no, it's nisrefes. If it was nisrefes, so why was the other one nechelas? Because the other one is we're talking about Tumas Chutzlaris. Tumas Chutzlaris, it could be nechelas. I know by the fact that you're burning a truma, so you're emphasizing it that stam truma tmei is not nechelas. V'haraya, this is nisrefes. Elamai, why was this other one eaten? Because it's only Trumas Chutzlars. Now Trumas Chutzlars, you're allowed to eat. Ve'heil v'zu v'zu midivreim is the ribba is mutter l'rabis menachelis. Since you're going to give two, one is going to be nesrefes and one is nechelis, is mutter l'rabis nechelis. The fichach shel sreifa ein l'shir ela kolshu, and v'shel achila is echad m'mukhes punkt fakert. In other words, by the place of Eretz Yisrael shel ziku ba'ela Mitzrayim. So over there, the one that was nesrefes was echad m'mukhes. And then there was another one that was nechelis in order to explain why the other one was nesrefes, and that was ein l'shir. Over here is fakert. The one that's nechelis, that's the echad memonches. And the one that's nisrefes is ein l'shir, because the whole purpose of the nisrefes is just to explain why the other one is nechelis, even though it's in chutzlars. The fichach shel sreifa ein l'shir ela kolshu, v'shel achila is echad memonches. And since there's going to be one that's nechelis, so there's going to be a one that's nesrefes. So therefore, umuteres lezavim ulezavis. In other words, this challah, which you're being mafish, which is nechelis and chutzlar, that's outside, completely outside Eretz Yisrael. So since you already were mafish one that was nesrefes, so this one that's nechelis is muteres lezavim ulezavis vein sar kleim u'lishartmein, which we'll learn that there's dinim that in the chiddush is even someone that's tummy with a tumah yetzel of migufei, which we'll soon see that normally shouldn't be eaten, and as if there isn't the one that's nisrefes, but over here, since there is one that's nisrefes, so the ones that's nechelis could even be eaten by someone that's tome yetzel megufet. Now, bizman hazeh she'ein sham iso tehera mipnei tumas hames. So bechlal there's no musig of an iso tehera. So before we said in Eretz Yisrael you mafish one isa and it's nechelis, because Eretz Yisrael is tor. So memela, the place where hechziko be'ela bavel, so it's a kedusha, and memela is nechelis. So he says no. Bizman hazeh she'ein sham iso tehera mipnei tumas hames is mafrishin chala achas b'chol Eretz Yisrael. You mafrish one chala in Eretz Yisrael, echad memches v'sefer nesa mipnei shehi tmeya v'yesh l'shem menatera. In other words, it's a tumah menatera. It's not it's a tumah ha'amin, which is a tumah she'eni yadua. It's a tumah she'yadua. Everyone knows that it's that his tumah because tumah hames, and memela that's why it's nesrefes. U'michziv adamona is mafrishin shniya l'kein lachila. Over there, you still mafrish the shniya l'kein lachila ve'en l'shir k'shahaya davar mikein. In other words, even though l'chura it's also tumah yadua, the only reason why you were mafresh a shniya was because you burned it and it wasn't a tumah yadua. Now you burn even in Eretz Yisrael mamish. So l'chura, why do you have to be mafresh a shniya l'kein? So it remained. You know, since l'chatchila the din was that you mafresh two, the first one. So b'negei Eretz Yisrael there was never a din of two. So over there l'chatchila you ate it. Now you don't eat it. Mashenkin in the Eretz Yisrael, which was from Shechziko Ba'ela Mitzrayim, so over there was a din that the first one was Nisrefes, and then you mafish another one, which ain't Lashir, which is Nechelis, so that din still remained. And as far as Chalas Chutzlars Mamish, like we learned the third Madrega, so that's also the same. In other words, it's the same the way it was. In other words, you mafish Chala, and that Chala is Nechelis, but besides that, in order for that Chala to be Nechelis to whoever, so Memela you have another one which is Nesrefes. And Memela, so it remains, originally it was Tameh, and we said before it was Mutter, even L'Zavim, L'Zavis. So the fact that people are Tameh, Bizman Hazeh, doesn't change that. So in Chutzlars, again, you mafresh two. The Iker one is Lachila, and there's also another one that's Nesrefes. In Mechziv Adamana, you mafresh two, the Iker one is Nesrefes, and there's also one Lachila. And in Eretz Yisrael, Lepel, it's all Nesrefes, because Lepel, everyone's tummy. Halacha Yud. Chalas chutzlaretz, afal pi shi tmeya, aber heil v'ikar chiyuvim midivreim, eina asura b'achila ela al koyin shetum yetzal megufin. There's chalas chutzlaretz be'etzem, even though lepel it's tummy, the chalas chutzlaretz is tummy, but lepel, since the whole chiyuv of chalas chutzlaretz is only on the rabbanon, is eina asura b'achila ela al koyin shetum yetzal megufin. Someone that's, we learned before that if you give two tchalas, one is l'sreifa and one is lachila, so that could be eaten even l'zav and l'zavas. But over here we're talking about if you wouldn't give one l'sreifa, you just have chalas chutzlars. So chalas chutzlars and it's tmeya, but since it's only a chiv midivreim, so it's eina asura b'achila ela al kein shetuma yetza olav megufei. Ve'im balikerian, u'v'zovim, v'zovis, v'nidas, v'yeldus, u'mtziroi. Aval shara tmeim b'maga shara tumas, afilu tmei mes, someone that's tummy, even if he's a tummy mes, is mutar lo'achla, is allowed to eat chalas chutzlaretz. There's no problem of someone that's tummy eating chalas chutzlaretz as long as he's not by him tummy yetz al megufay. Lefichach. Im hoyeshom koyin cotton b'chutzlaretz, bein b'surya, bein b'sh'ar ha'rotzes, and v'rotzah, instead of being mafresh two chalas, like we said before, one is lachila and one is l'sreifa, v'rotzah lahafresh chala achas, is mafresh echad m'mches, and that chalas taken necheles l'koyin shadayin l'ira keri. Ay l'ktana shadayin l'ira sanida, and memele bein tzorach lahafresh shniya. So in other words, when you're mafresh shniya, so then the chala and necheles can be eaten to anyone, even to a zav and a zav. Masha'enkin, if you're giving the chala rishena, the chalas chutzlaretz, to someone that's beferish doesn't have a tumah sheyotzel of megufay, l'moshel, we're dealing with a cotton which leira keri or ktana, which is leira sanida, so they don't have any tumah sheyotzel of megufay, it's just a regular tumah. So then you could have chalas chutzlaretz, and that could be necheles even to a tameh, and that's not a problem as long as it's not a tumah sheyotzel of megufay. V'cheinim hoyisham kein gadol. This is a kohen that's not a cotton, a kohen gadol means a kohen that's not a cotton. Lepel which tavel neshich v'zare emizivase, he was tavel. Afal pi shelei herav shimshei and v'afal pi shu tmei mes. So the churi is a tamei anyways. But lepel he was tavel, and Mameli took away that gather of tumah, which is the tumah yetz all of megufei. Is harei ze mutal lechel hachala rishena ve'in tzorich lahafish shniya b'chutzlar. There's nothing more. In chutzlar it's mamish. If you mafresh the chala rishen, two chalas, so the chala, one chala necheles and one chala nesrefes, so that chala which is necheles could be eaten even to zav and zavs. There's no hagbola at all. Masha'enkin, if you want to be mafresh only one chala, not to be mafresh another chala and nesrefes, so you could only give it to someone that there's no kshash of a tumah yitzal of megufi. So how would that be? Either a cotton, that's leira keri, or ktana leira sunida, or a gadol which was toivel, either mishich v'zari or mizivase. And memela then ve'in etzorech lahafish shniya b'chutzlaretz. Kol ha'mafresh chala mevarech tchila shegedeshanu b'mitzvesa v'tzivonu lahafish chala. And that's bein ba'aretz, bein b'chutzlaretz. Both places there's a chiyuv, there's a bracha. Ukshem shemevarech ala teira, if it would be teira, the chala, is kach mevarech ala tmeya. If the isa is tmeya, or Bezman has said that everyone's tummy, so maybe you also make a bracha on Afrash's challah. The fichach, since there's a chiyuv of a bracha, is ein ho'ish arum with mafresh challah. Person that's arum is not dressed, so maybe he's not mafresh challah. Li'robacha ervas dover she'eni yochel levarich. He's not allowed to make a bracha when he's arum. Aval ho'isha aruma, which is sheyoshvu, which is sitting on the ground, and v'chol poneh tuchis bekarka, which means poneh sholmata is tuchis bekarka. So maybe she's completely covered. The erva is covered, so therefore mivareches umefreshes challah. She could make the bracha b'mafresh challah in that state. Halacha yud beis. Hanida ukiyeitzeba, even though she's a nida, is mivareches umefreshes chalas chutzlaretz. So in other words, even though we learned before that a chalas chutzlaretz is usher to someone that's tamish tumei hayetzol of megufei, and a nida goes into the gather of tumei yetzol of megufei. But that's only shenal to eat it. Shenal to eat chalas chutzlaretz if you're not being mafresh the one who's reifa. But she's allowed to touch it. Hanidu ki yetziv mevareches umafreshes chalas chutzlaretz. She'ena muzheres al mago. There's no iser of a nida touching chalas chutzlaretz. Ela ala chilosa, only offer to eat it. V'im hoyisham koyin cotton, a koyin shetavel, she muteres leilachila k'mesha b'yarnu. Hareze muter le'ochlo, you're allowed to eat this chalas chutzlaretz, even though it's touched by a nida, but the person that's eating it is not someone that's tumah sheyitzol of megufei. Hareze muter le'ochlo im hazor al shulchan echad. Normally you're not supposed to eat truma with a zor al shulchan echad because there's a concern that the zor will eat it. But over here, since we're dealing with chalas chutzlaretz, which is only a drabanan, so mele this concern that a zor will eat this chalas chutzlaretz is not a concern, and therefore it is a muter le'ochlo im hazor al shulchan echad. In other words, even if it gets mixed up with other things, it doesn't become meduma. In other words, if it gets mixed up, so there's no isser to eat it. Even if it normally needs the truma has to be ele bechud meya. And certainly Shechur have to be able to berei. But over here the chiddush is that chalas chutz la'aretz is so kuladik that even if nisar b'shava, it's also not in damas. And nochadin of a kul of chalas chutz la'aretz v'neis neis l'keim la'amoretz. Mipnei she'itmei be'aver eretz am, it's already tummy. Since it's chalas chutz la'aretz, it's already tummy, so there's no concern of the amoretz making it tummy. Ve'ein bo mishum kein am-sayeh b'matneis of shu aser. Normally, a kohen is not to be Messiah to get matnas kuna, but when you get chalas chutz la'aretz, there's no problem of a kohen being Messiah in order to receive chalas chutz la'aretz. Normally, you have to be mafresh chala, and then you can eat from the isa. But over here, the chiddush is in rotza lechel tchila. You want to eat part of the isa, v'acharkach yafresh achala b'chutz la'aretz, and then you'll be mafresh the chala b'chutz la'aretz. Also mutter shein ikra elam midivrei. So these are kama v'kama kulis. In chalas chutz la'aretz, anida could be mafreshet, and you're allowed to eat it with a zor, and it's enim damas, even shava b'shava, and there's no problem of giving it to a kein amoretz, and there's no problem of a kein amsiya besagronis, and there's even no problem of starting to eat the isa before you're mafresh the chala. Halacha yud gimel. Hachala nikras truma. Now this is a general din of chala. Chala nikras truma. The fichoch einay tell us elam and amukiv ketruma. It's just like truma has to be taken in amukiv. In other words, the truma that you're taking from the kri has to be next to the kri. You can't take the truma from one place, and you shouldn't. You shouldn't take the truma from one place, and the kri should be in another place. They should be next to each other, and you're taking it, and you're being mafresh. So in the same way, the chala is einen nitelis elam and amukiv ki truma. Einen nitelis minator elatomi lechatchila. Lechatchila, you shouldn't be mafresh minator elatomi. That's what we learned. When you get truma, you're not mafresh min hator, even min hator elatomi. Certainly not min hatomi elator, but not even min hator elatomi. Halacha yudala. V'chol shamarna betruma le'yitreim v'im torem eine truma like acher sheite v'kotten can't be meichel Hashem chales truma is kach b'chala. It can't be meichel Hashem chales chala. V'chol shamarna betruma le'yitreim mizal zeh, it's a min b'sheini minei, is kach b'chala. You also now will be teir mizal zeh. V'chol she'ene echel b'truma, any person that's not eligible to eat truma is also eine echel b'chala. And v'chol echel truma, anyone that's eligible to eat truma knows a proper kohen that's eligible to eat truma, so is echel chala, he's allowed to eat chala. Halacha tezvov. Hasuma v'ashikr mafrishin chala l'chatchila. Why? She'im be'iser ravi yofe k'dei she'yichavnu v'yifreshu min ha'yofe. So knows b'negea truma we have to be mafresh min ha'yofe. So over there's a problem of being mafresh asuma and a shikr because lepel he can be machavim min ha'yofe. Mashayin ken chala, it's the same isa. It's only a question of separating a piece of dough. It's not min ha'yofe. So mainly even someone that's asuma and a shikr could also be mafresh chala.